There's a new day dawning, the time is at hand, where the glory of the Lord will be revealed to every man. Open the door, open the door, open the door, and let the King of Glory in. Open the door.
All right, open up the door. Starts right now. So fling wide, you heavenly gates. Prepare the way of the risen Lord. The Apostle John was on the island of Patmos. He was in prison for the testimony of Jesus Christ. And he heard a sound behind him, and he turned around and he looked. He said, there was a door standing open in heaven, and I heard a voice which was like a trumpet speaking with me, saying, come up here, and I will show you the things which must take place. That's what we need, my friends. We need a heavenly perspective of the things that are going on in the world around us. The things that the Word of God foretold us would come to pass. Those things which must take place. Those things which are taking place even now. That is what this broadcast is all about. Discussing the issues of the day. Discerning the times in which we live. From a biblical perspective and worldview. Good afternoon, everybody. Andy White here. What you are about to hear is the fusion of heart, mind, and soul. And I want to welcome everybody from all across the fruited plain and all around the spherical globe. Thanks for tuning in to this week's edition of Open Up the Doors. Hey, if you are tuned in, you can watch me live over on my Facebook page. Go on over to Facebook.com, Faith FM 91.7, and join us on the live stream over there. Let me know where you're watching from. Join in the conversation over there. And we want to definitely keep the broadcast as interactive as possible, and just connecting all of my supporters and all my friends all across the fruited plain. If you've never liked the Facebook page, please like the page as well. You can also follow me at Parler. I have a Parler account. I've been spending most of my time and most of my posts over there on Parler these past few months, because Facebook has just gotten so ridiculous with their trolling and their throttling down and their shadow banning. But you can follow me on Parler at AJ White 777 for uncensored reporting and uncensored news and posts. It's a wonderful experience. And everyone's jumping ship out of Facebook and jumping ship out of Twitter to get over there to Parler because of all the censoring and that's going on these days. We are streaming, of course, across the internet at hamptonschristian.com. And if you are outside of the Faith FM broadcast area, the best way to listen to Faith FM is to download the Faith FM app, which is absolutely free. You get the app at the Google Play Store for your Android platform, the Apple App Store for your Apple products, iPhones, and those sort of things. All right, I'm going to get right to it because there's so much to get to. But actually, before I get to the meat and potatoes of today's broadcast, I need to give you a little bit of an appetizer, folks, in the form of a great big I told you so. I don't do this often, but I'm going to give you a great big I told you so. Because way back in January, that seemed like eons ago, but way back in January, when the travesty and the fraudulent impeachment was going on of Donald Trump, because the Democrats were insisting that Trump did something illegal, which he did not, in his phone call with the Ukrainian president. Oh, remember that? Well, they tried to impeach him, if you remember, on grounds of obstruction of justice. But folks, I told you way back then in December and in January, the only ones that were obstructing justice were Adam Schiff and the Democrats, and that the impeachment charade was nothing but an attempt to cover up and deflect from the real corruption that they wanted to hide of the Biden crime family. And that's what it's turning into, folks. That's what it's really turning into, the Biden crime family, because more and more and more is getting uncovered. And it's even worse than anyone imagined. But go back and listen to those broadcasts in December and January when I was talking about it. And I told you that impeachment was nothing but a deflection to continue from the Democrats' mindset of hoping they would cover up. And all of you leftist listeners that I have that listen to this broadcast, and I know you're out there because you've texted me and you've commented on my posts and you've mocked me and you've laughed at me regarding this whole Hunter Biden thing for a couple of years now, because I've talked about Hunter Biden and his Burisma shenanigans for a few years now. And you guys, you people on the left, you were mocking me and laughing at me and telling me I was trading in conspiracy theories, which is something I never ever do on this broadcast. And you were laughing at me, but as the old saying goes, he who laughs last laughs best. And now it's all blowing up and finally coming to light. And just last night, it gets better by the day. Just last night, a whistleblower. Hey, every scandal's got to have a whistleblower, right? Well, a whistleblower comes out last night to verify the emails are real, and he was a recipient of those emails. And he testified last night to the FBI in affidavits of the fact that Joe Biden was involved through his son Hunter in a money laundering scheme to get rich off of the political contacts both in Ukraine and China. But unlike the phony whistleblower of the impeachment that the Dems, remember the Dems would never release his name? And I can't even remember his name. We were making fun of it back then because his name got leaked out, and we kept announcing his name because the media would never announce this supposed whistleblower's name. But unlike that scam, unlike them trying to hide that whistleblower because he was a fake, a phony, and a fraud, this guy has stood up and publicly identified himself to verify the facts of the emails that are, make no mistake about it, are so damning to Joe Biden. Now, because this guy stood up, that just increases his credibility all the more. Because now you know who he is. Now you know he's a CEO of some Chinese, not a Chinese company, but he was a CEO of some company that this is a former business associate of Hunter Biden, this whistleblower. This guy's a Democrat, supposedly. But the point is, he's tooting the horn, my friends, and he's not staying in hiding. And I hope they get some security around this guy real fast. I want to tell you something. The deep state, as we know, is real. The corruption is real, and it needs to be exposed. And these people cannot be allowed to have the reins of power any longer in this government. This election is more serious, and we know how serious this election has been. We know that. But it's just gone down to a place that I don't think any one of us would have imagined a few short weeks ago. I want to tell you something, folks. I really do, from my heart. I try my best to bring you an honest evaluation of the things that are going on in this world from a biblical perspective. That's why I don't let the naysayers and my leftist liberal friends get under my skin too much, because I know the work I put into vetting the stories that I share, the things I share on this broadcast. I have never treated this broadcast as a platform to sensationalize or to go into hyperbole with conspiracy things. And unlike the big names and the big professionals in radio and the media who have script writers and who have content producers and who have fact checkers on their team, I have none of that. I've got to write out my monologue script myself. I don't have a script writer. I don't have a monologue writer. I've got to put my notes together myself. I've got to produce the broadcast content all by myself. I thank God for my video producer. She produces the videos of the broadcast. I thank God for her. But I've got to produce the broadcast content all by myself. I don't have producers feeding me stories. I've got to fact check and vet those stories all by myself. And I do that as best as I humanly and possibly can. In the light of the fact that I do work a regular 40-hour work week, I have a job that's completely unrelated to any of this. And I'm saying that for this reason. I try to use the very best sources that I can use, sources that I trust. And I have never had to come back, that I can think of anyway, and do a mea culpa for any broadcast I have ever brought forth. And I'm just saying that to say this. See, I told you so. Now let's get on with the broadcast. Because to say that there are October surprises springing up all over the place would be an understatement. Remember back in the first broadcast of October, that broadcast was entitled Red October, and I talked about, hey, this is October. We can we can expect some October surprises. Oh my gosh, we got October surprises blowing up all over the place. They're not surprises. These are bombshells. October bombshells blowing up all over the place. But before I get into all that, I'm going to backtrack just a little bit, because I want to lay out something here that I really want you to understand. You know, David in the Psalms asked the question, and I presume he asked it somewhat rhetorically, but in Psalm 11, verse 3, David said this: if the foundations are destroyed, what can the righteous do? Selah. There are forces that we've talked about for years on this broadcast now that have sought and are seeking and are undermining the foundations of our Judeo-Christian heritage, of our Constitution. And this biblical passage, it rings so true today. If the foundations be destroyed, what can the righteous do? The founders and the forefathers of our constitutional republic profoundly understood that the immutable rock of divine law was the necessary component and foundation of human freedom and dignity. That's why we call it American exceptionalism. There's a reason America has been an exceptional country. Not because we were less sinful, not because we were more perfect, but because our founders had an incredibly profound understanding of divine law, of the law of nature and of nature's gods, and that the very foundations of our liberty and our rights and our freedoms, the very foundation of our constitutional republic, is founded upon the laws of nature and of nature's God. And where did they get that from? Well, there was a really long progression through the years, through the centuries of philosophical thought. But let me bring you back to 1644. 1644, the Scottish theologian and Presbyterian minister Samuel Rutherford wrote and published a book called Lex Rex. Lex Rex is simply Latin for the law is king. He subtitled Lex Rex, The Law and the Prince. It's funny because every time I turn around, I say to somebody, Lex Rex is dead in this country. I usually get a look like, who is that? It's just a saying I have. Lex Rex is dead in this country. The law is king. Lex Rex is not a person, it's a thing. It's the rule of law. Samuel Rutherford argued in his treatise of Lex Rex, he utilized arguments from Scripture and natural law, the laws of nature and of nature's God. And in his book, he utilized these arguments in order to show that governments and even kings must be submissive to absolute law, divine law, or they will surely become a law unto themselves. Because you see, for centuries, we see this in the Bible. For centuries, it was said that it wasn't Lex Rex, it was Rex Lex. The king is the law. We see that. We see that in Scripture, where the king is the law. But not so, said Samuel Rutherford. He turned Rex Lex, he flipped it around and said, no, the king is not the law. It's not Rex Lex, it's Lex Rex. Try saying that 3 times fast. No, the law is king. Even God conducts himself, because he's holy. It's the laws of nature and of nature's God. God himself honors his own law of being. God can't even break his own law. He won't break his own law, or he'd be a devil. Rutherford's book was a treatise which defended the rule of law and the lawfulness of defensive wars, amongst other things, which I won't get into. I don't have the time. But here's the thing. The idea of the rule of law and of individual rights with equal justice under the law is at the very heart of our Judeo-Christian constitutional underpinnings. Rutherford, in his book Lex Rex, he attacked royal absolutism. In other words, divine law does not permit an elite class that is above the law. And Rutherford attacked that. And you know what? The powers that be in his day did not like it. The Scottish king did not like it. What do you mean I'm not above the law? What do you mean I'm the king and I've got to abide by some divine law? No, they didn't like it. So Lex Rex, when Samuel Rutherford wrote it, it was banned. It was burned because the powers that be didn't like it. In 1683, Oxford University included Lex Rex in what ended up being the last official book burning in England. You know, back then they used to do a lot of book burnings. Well, the last official book burning in England included copies of Lex Rex, 1683. Because Rutherford's Lex Rex, with its attack on elitism and absolutism, and the defense of the rule of law, and the emphasis on the importance of the covenant, made Lex Rex a precursor to the social contract idea, which came out like 100 years or so later. And that helped pave the way for the political theory of John Locke, which in turn eventually formed the basis of the Declaration of Independence and the creation of the Constitutional Republic of the United States. And I shared all of that really to ask this question: is Lex Rex dead? At the very least, it's dying in America. Has the rule of law died? You know, John Adams gave us a slogan that drove this nation to such heights. John Adams said this. He said, "We are a nation of laws, not of men." How quaint. Beautiful rhetoric. No, he meant it. They meant it back then. We are a law of nations, not men. I doubt that John Adams would recognize the nation that he helped create today. And you tell you, folks, as an American citizen, I've never felt so these past months, even few years. I've never felt so disenchanted with my country in my life. For a long time now, as we've seen the corruption, as we've seen the deep state, as we've seen these political elitists just keep getting away and getting away and getting away with breaking laws that you and I would never be able to get away with. And this Burisma, China, Hunter Biden affair has now brought this to another level. The media won't cover it. Remember when the media was always digging up, looking for political scandals? No, not anymore, because they're all in cahoots together for their own agenda. The media won't cover it. Big tech won't allow it to be covered. And the FBI sat on Hunter Biden's laptop since last December. I shared with you just a month ago in a broadcast titled, "Here Comes the Judge." I said this because it was a month ago that a Senate committee put out a report on this Burisma affair with Hunter Biden. I said the media was a bombshell report. It was put out by the Senate. I said this a month ago. Let me quote from my own broadcast. A bombshell report came out, well, that was a month ago, yesterday. A bombshell report came out from the Senate Homeland and Government Affairs Committee and the Senate Finance Committee, two different committees. This bombshell blockbuster report came out, and I said back then, a month ago, it needed to be shouted from the rooftops because it would finish the Biden campaign off. But this is what I said a month ago, but I realize it won't. Here we are a month later. And now the media is still even doing double time, running interference and distractions for them. Because the Biden's media allies will continue. They will continue to obfuscate the facts and run interference. But it's getting out there. And this is really huge. And this is, like I said, I've been reporting on this for months now, for years now. That report that came out a month ago that everybody yawned over or ignored, it showed the money laundering connections. I spoke about this a month ago. It talked about the allegations that Hunter Biden was involved with sex trafficking. But it never went anywhere in the media a month ago until this came from the report. This came from the report from a month ago. Let me read just one little clip here. The so-called suspicious activity reports flagged millions of dollars in transactions from the Ukrainian gas company Burisma Holdings, a Russian oligarch named Yelena Baturina, and Chinese businessmen with ties to Beijing's communist government. The report said a month ago. Senate investigators have yet to determine if the FBI or others investigated the concerns. Wow, that was a month ago, and they were wondering, has the FBI looked into any of this? Enter the laptop from hell, as Donald Trump called it this past week. Lo and behold, talk about an October surprise, the laptop from hell. Oh, I want to tell you, folks, there's a reason Biden's hiding, and it's not the coronavirus he's afraid of. It's a computer virus. Some reports are now saying that the stuff that's on Hunter Biden's laptop is even worse than Anthony Weiner's laptop. Funny about the timing. Remember Anthony Weiner's laptop? His laptop had Anthony Weiner's nude pictures on it. And it also had classified Hillary emails on it that back then, 4 years ago, Comey decided, hey, that was no big deal. Well, here we are again, 4 years later. Isn't it amazing? I mean, you can't make this stuff up. It's almost funny. So now we got another laptop with more pornographic pictures on it that are even worse than Anthony Weiner's. And we've got emails. Verified. Forget the spin of the media. Forget the lies of Adam Schiff and all of the leftist sycophants in the media. This is nowhere near Russian disinformation, my friends. That's been completely debunked. Yeah, this is the laptop from hell. But I did see somebody say, you know what? It was I just saw it in the comment stream and I picked up on it. Somebody said the laptop from hell became the gift from heaven. And I started thinking, well, I don't know if I'd go that far. But, you know, I got to thinking. The gift from heaven. You know, I'm gonna throw a little bit of a piece of candy to some of you folks out there. I know that there are some of you that have talked about for years how Donald Trump was like there's a corollary between Isaiah 45 and our president number 45. And for years there's a bunch of you out there that have been trying to show the comparisons of Donald Trump and Cyrus and Isaiah 45. Well, I'm going to give you a little piece of candy here. It's kind of good. When I think about this comment that somebody said the laptop from hell became the gift from heaven, you know what Isaiah 45:3 says? I will give you the treasures of darkness and hidden riches of secret places. Do with that with what you want. I just find it, I don't know, intriguing. But here's the $1 million question. Here is the $1 million question. The FBI has had this laptop since last December. Why have they sat on it? Why didn't they bring it forth during the so-called impeachment of President Trump when it would have vindicated him 1,000%? I hope I'm wrong. I hope I'm wrong. But at the moment, I have completely lost any faith that the FBI or the DOJ will ever hold anyone or do anything against their cronies in the deep state. I don't think they'll hold anybody accountable. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe they were holding on to this because they were doing a secret investigation. I have been hearing that. I have been hearing, well, the reason they were holding on to it was because they were doing this secret investigation. I don't know if I buy that, but it goes back to this, folks. This is where I want to tie some of these threads together. Equal justice under the law, thus far, seems to be dead in America. It's utterly pathetic and it's tragic. Lex Rex is dying. He's been poisoned. And I'm just playing with the name because I know some of you think it's the name of a guy. But the law is king, Lex Rex. He was killed. He was poisoned by corruption and apathy. This is utterly outrageous. It's utterly outrageous when you think about what's going on. When did our laws only apply if the media is covering the story? Why don't we have a Justice Department that goes after Biden, or they'll bring it back 4 years, took Hillary down, the chant, put her, lock her up, lock her up. These people have committed crimes, treason. But unless the media decides to cover the story, they'll just get away with it. Why don't we have a Justice Department that goes after Biden and his son, whether Twitter picks up the story or not, whether NBC wants to cover it or not? Why don't our laws apply regardless of whether or not the press wants to print it? There used to be no such thing as Twitter or Facebook or Google or YouTube, but we still indicted criminals. Can anybody explain this? I'm trying to. Lex Rex has been poisoned. The Senate report that came out, an 87-page Senate report last month, said this, quote, "The Treasury records acquired by the Congressional Committee show potential criminal activity relating to transactions among and between Hunter Biden, his family, and his associates with Ukraine, Russia, Kazakh, and Chinese nationals. And these people could possibly win the presidency in less than 2 weeks." I don't think they're going to win, and I hope they're not going to win. But folks, if they win, all of this crime, all of these revelations, they all go away because the Democrats won't pursue it, and Lex Rex will be dead for sure. I am trying to shake you and wake you up to raise your voices because the media spent years desperately trying to find some evidence that President Trump and his kids were profiting all off of his office. And we always say, whatever the left is accusing you of doing, they are in fact doing. But now we have proof. That's exactly what Joe Biden was doing as vice president, and they won't even report it. Or worse yet, they'll just say it's Russia, disinformation. Oh, it's conspiracy theories. No, it's not. Glenn Beck talked about Hunter Biden 4 and 5 years ago when we didn't even think Joe Biden was going to run for president. This has been out there. Politico covered it 4 years ago. But no, it just gets buried. For 4 years, we incessantly heard from the pathological leftists that they were certain Russia had something on Trump. They were certain that Trump was vulnerable to blackmail. But nope, zero, nada, zilch. But now, it's all but certain that China actually does have something on Biden and that he is a national security risk. And now all we get from the lamestream miscreant media and the big tech fascists are crickets and rants about conspiracy theories. They'd be laughable if they weren't so dangerously deranged. The same people who said the fake Steele dossier was real are now saying the real Biden laptop is fake. Funny how that works, don't you think? The corruption of the deep state is very deep. But it's being exposed. And we need to hold our FBI and our DOJ, we need to hold their feet to the fire to prosecute and indict when they have all their ducks in a row, if they're even lining up their ducks in a row. But I'm going to take a break. This was a very long opening monologue. I'll be back in a moment. Stick around.
I'm the son of a good man. I'm the child of an angel.
The fusion of heart, mind, and soul. This is Open Up the Doors with Andy White here on Faith FM, WEGB 90.7, 93.3 in Napeague, WEGQ 91.7 in Quad. Thanks for joining in, everybody, to this week's edition of Open Up the Doors. Second half coming in. All right. I'm hearing that the FM signal's down in various places. Well, if you're listening over the internet, we are streaming at hamptonschristian.com. If the FM signal's down for some reason, maybe the transmitters are down. I don't know. Anyway, skip that because this will be airing again on Saturday, and you're probably going to be hearing it. I'm just getting some folks telling me that. Thank God for the internet. You could hear this on the Faith FM app. If you never got the app, download the app for situations like this. You can get the app for your Android at the Google Play Store. You can get the app for your Apple equipment at the Apple Store. Free Faith FM app to listen to Faith FM 24/7 all around the spherical globe. Also, if you've never liked my YouTube channel, please subscribe to my YouTube channel. Please do that and hit the little bell to get the notifications when we upload these archived broadcasts. I want to get back into what I have because I have so much. You know, folks, it's just piling on because it's not just the Senate report that came out a month ago, which should have been enough alone. But now we've got the laptop too. But wait, there's more. Hunter's former business partner, Bevan Cooney, who's in jail because of his connections with this money laundering scheme. He's basically got ticked off because he could see that Hunter was getting away with all the stuff that he's in jail for, and Devin Archer, the other business partner, is about to go to jail. So now they're singing. They're starting to sing that jailbird tune. But this guy, Bevan Cooney, has turned over his email account to investigators. So all the hard, cold evidence is piling up. And the more the frantic Dems and their media sycophants cry, Russia, 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 the more a bunch of laughingstocks and fools they show themselves to be. But here's what's happening this week that makes these things so much more disgusting, if you will. The fact that Twitter shut down the New York Post account, which first broke the story. The fact that Facebook is not allowing posts or shadow banning the post. Free speech is under serious attack by the rise of techno-fascism, my friends. Techno-fascism. I'm just coining that phrase myself. I don't know if anybody else has used it, but what does big tech and big government have in common? They both want to control you for their own power and profit. But we were just told just last night in a special news brief by the DNI and the FBI that yeah, there is Russia disinformation. Yeah, that they are talking. We've known that. They always do that. But this isn't it. It's not this story. But we found out from the FBI that Facebook and Twitter and Google have been promoting fake text and Iranian propaganda. Yes, they've been promoting some of the Russian bots and the Russian propaganda, and yet they want to say that you need to be controlled from spreading disinformation. It's unbelievable the circus this is being turned into. And I'm in information overload today, folks. But I want to share something with you that truth is stranger than fiction. You can't even make this stuff up. Because if anyone out there actually believes for a moment that Facebook fact checkers are independent, disinterested entities, I would suggest you get a brain scan. Now, I went through some of their fact checking stuff in a broadcast a few months ago, but here's something that's very pertinent to the story. Because as Twitter and as Facebook is banning stories reporting on Hunter Biden's Burisma and Chinese, shenanigans, if you will. Guess who is the content regulation election editor for Facebook? Ready for this? I'm not making this up. Joe Biden's former Ukraine advisor now works on content regulation, election integrity for Facebook. This was put out by the Post. This is why Twitter's blocking and banning the Post, because they're just like putting out all the stuff. The Post writes that a former policy advisor to former Vice President Joe Biden now works as a legal and public policy advisor specializing in election information at Facebook. Oh, isn't that sweet? The woman in question, Anna McAndrew, is also a senior fellow at the Atlantic Council, an international affairs think tank. Quote, she is a public policy and legal expert working at Facebook, where she leads efforts to ensure election integrity on the platform. Yeah, Anna McAndrew was Biden's senior policy advisor for the Ukraine. At the same time, Hunter Biden was involved with Burisma. Anna McAndrew is now working for Facebook's election integrity department. The one who was the Ukraine advisor for Joe Biden. Hello? I mean, so let me play the part of Captain Obvious. How could someone who worked as Joe Biden's Ukraine advisor fairly judge Facebook content to maintain election integrity? Especially, obviously, now when Facebook has throttled down its reach on the New York Post story regarding Hunter Biden's emails just last week. Oh, you know why the algorithms are being tuned the way they're being tuned? There you go, right there, and it just keeps getting better. Oh, there's more. There's more here, folks. If that wasn't enough, let me unwrap this some more for you. Meet your Chinese Facebook censors. You know, the Chinese government, the Chinese media is the most censorious nation in the planet. And I've been saying for months now that the Chinese coronavirus is turning us into China. Well, at least at Facebook, that is for sure. And I'm not being facetious, folks. It's a fact, pun intended. There are Chinese nationals working at Facebook, writing algorithms for Facebook. Yeah, here it is in another report. Let me read some of this. There are at least a half a dozen Chinese nationals who are working on censorship, a former Facebook insider reported last week. So at some point, Facebook said, "Hey, we're having to get them, H-1B visas so they can do this work." So when it comes to censorship on Facebook, when it comes to censorship on social media, that means, quote unquote, teaching the Facebook code so certain content ends up at the top of your newsfeed, a feat that earns the firm's software wizards discretionary bonuses per the former Facebook employee. It also means they're making sure other content, like open up the doorposts, shows up dead last. And I'm saying that for a factual reason, because I've been informed by Facebook for several weeks now, because they've been trolling me, these fascists, fake, phony, fraudulent fact checkers have been trolling me and marking almost every one of my posts that they don't like as being not factual. But they're liars. I don't post anything that isn't factual. You may not like what it says. You may not like the analysis of it, but it's factual. And you guys are being exposed. And yeah, I'm probably going to get kicked off Facebook real soon. That's why I've been telling you people join me over there on Parler. But I'm not going to roll over and just be a little sheeple. I'm not going to just roll over and play nice. You're not going to bully me. You're not going to bully thousands, millions of Americans who don't agree with you. We have had it with your techno-fascism. And now you're hiring Chinese nationals to censor our First Amendment rights. The reason I gave you a little bit of the background on Lex Rex at the beginning of the show was to explain to you that our fundamental rights, our civil liberties are based in these things. And if the foundations be destroyed, what can the righteous do? Well, this one guy is going to fight back. And I want to encourage you to fight back as any way that we can fight back. Because it's disgusting. It's despicable that this would be happening in America. Techno-fascism. The left will do what it can. Will do whatever it can to tear down normalcy and inject chaos into society, even to the point of redefining commonly accepted words and phrases, because that's their path to their statist, totalitarian utopia. What am I talking about at the moment right here? Did you see this, folks, last week? Remember when Amy Coney Barrett was being interviewed by the senator from Hawaii? I'm going to try and be a little bit nice here. I don't know if I can. Because Senator Haroni, I'm just going to say it straight up. I'm sorry. I don't mean to be offensive. But the woman is... You had the dumbest woman in the room questioning the smartest woman in the room, the smartest person in the room. Haroni's line of questioning was absurd. I watched it. I was home from work that day because it was pouring rain out. And I was watching. I couldn't believe the questions. Judge Barrett, have you ever sexually assaulted anyone? Have you ever sexually harassed anyone? I mean, really? Give me a break. I'm going to run out of time going off on that. But the reason I'm even bringing that up was, at one point, Senator Hirono, or whatever her name is, Senator Hirono, questioned or brought up something that Amy Coney Barrett had written about people's sexual preference. And she says, Miss Barrett, do you realize that the term sexual preference is offensive? Now, folks, quite honestly, I don't think anybody on the planet ever thought about that term being offensive until that moment in time. No one that I know of ever thought that the term sexual preference was offensive, because that's the term that we've been told was a legitimate phrase for decades now. But all of a sudden, sexual preference is now an offensive term. But here's the thing, folks. In real time, the minute the people over at the online version of the Merriam-Webster dictionary heard that, they literally changed the dictionary definition of sexual preference to add an offensive term. Sexual preference is an offensive term. They did it in real time. This is how Orwellian our society has become. This is how completely completely war is peace, peace is war. George Orwell's 1984. It's unstinking believable. The techno-fascists in real time changed the Merriam-Webster dictionary definition of sexual preference. The bottom line is this. The New York Times, the Washington Post, Politico, really all of the mainstream leftist Democratic Party media are covering up. They're covering up for the deep state. They're covering up for the corrupt Biden family, hoping to get him in the White House. And we have got to stop it. You've got to go out and vote, folks. You've got to go out and vote. You've got to vote red. You know what red means? It's been going around the internet. I think it's great. Remove every Democrat. Listen, folks. Listen. Republicans may not be perfect. No one here is saying that Republicans are perfect. But the other side is utterly insane. In the last several years, we have witnessed the greatest corruption and treasonous actions done by so many in so short a time. And it's a tragedy and it's a travesty. Barack Obama, Hillary Clinton, John Brennan, James Clapper, James Comey, Peter Strzok, Andy McCabe. The list goes on and on and on. Many, many others down the deep state rabbit hole. And they ought to be indicted and prosecuted for both corruption and treasonous actions against the United States of America. But sadly and tragically, they most likely will never be. And they certainly won't be if the Democrats take the White House and the Senate. Our republic is hanging by a thread, my friends. And though these people may not ever see the light of a courtroom, though justice in this world they may elude justice in this world, at the very least, their treasonous deeds ought to be exposed for all to see, that they may be held in utter contempt until the final judgment day comes. And yes, my friends, Christians should care about these things. Christians should care about truth and just government. If the foundations be destroyed, what shall the righteous do? I'll tell you one thing they shouldn't do. They shouldn't fall into apathy and complacency. Christians should care about truth and just government, where, as John Adams said, we are a nation of laws and not men, where the rule of law assures us of our rights and equal justice under the law. And yet, I have to tell you, folks, it amazes me to see the uninterested and collective yawn I see from many in the church regarding these things. The laissez-faire attitude from those in the professing church. To me, it's abominable. The scripture declares that when the righteous are in authority, the people rejoice. We want to see righteous government. We want to see the law equally applied to everyone. Red, yellow, black, and white. The great American ideal. I heard, and I'm not sure about the wording because I just heard it in passing in the news today, but I heard there's some new Joe Biden ad out there saying that America was a great idea that failed. Now, I'm not sure of the exact wording. It was something, some ad out there. America was a great idea, but we failed. No. America is a great idea. It's founded in the laws of nature and of nature's God. It's founded in understanding human dignity and our individualism, and that we get our rights from God. The greatest nation in the world. Yes, American exceptionalism. And that's why we want the righteous in authority. No, nobody's perfect. And I'm not here saying that, as I said a moment ago, I'm not saying the Republicans are perfect. I'm not saying by any stretch of the imagination that Donald Trump is perfect. But there is a difference between worldviews, my friends, that I've been saying now for months and months and months. There is a difference. This isn't politics as usual. This isn't where it used to be Republicans and Democrats were all patriotic and they just had, they all had the same goals, but they just had a different idea of how to reach those goals. No, our goals aren't even the same anymore. They want to destroy the republic. We want to preserve it. They want to destroy the American idea. We want to make it better. When the righteous are in authority, the people rejoice. But when a wicked man rules, the people groan. Lex Rex, the law is king. That, along with the Bible, became the basis and the foundation of our modern-day jurisprudence system. It's what led, in a major way, to the American Revolution and the throwing off of the shackles of the King of England, with a very simple premise that no one is above the law and that laws ought to be equally applied to all, that a constitutional republic is the best form of government for securing the liberties and natural rights of human beings. The principle of equal justice under the law, that high ideal that was embedded into our Constitution, has seemingly become just a quaint idea that's being relegated to the past, where now we see we have a three-tier justice system. And I use the word justice system very loosely. One tier is a very corrupt system for the political elites and privileged. The second tier is for the common man, who must be constrained according to the laws that are selectively applied to you and me. And then there's another tier in our increasingly dystopian justice system that has been developed for that class of persons who are of special interest to the political class for their continued power and usefulness. Tragically, Lex Rex has succumbed to a poisonous and slow death, a fatal disease that began a very long time ago, perhaps even unnoticed. But the infection began to truly spread with the ignoring of the crimes of the Clintons, when James Comey cleared her of any wrongdoing in what was obvious for all to see, and anyone else would have been put in prison for. The depth and breadth of the corruption of the political elite in our nation is bringing this country to the brink of civil war. The depth and the width of the cancerous corruption in D.C. has metastasized throughout all agencies of the government, and I'm afraid it's incurable. I pray to God it's not incurable, but I can't help to think of what Isaiah said, a last sinful nation, a people laden with iniquity, a brood of evildoers, children who are corrupters. The whole head is sick, and the whole heart faints. From the sole of the foot even to the head, there is no soundness in it, but wounds and bruises and putrefying sores that have not been closed up or bound up. And the Lord God says, come now and let us reason together. Though your sins be as scarlet, they shall be white as wool. Come now and repent of your evil doings. If the foundations be destroyed, what can the righteous do? Watch. Stand fast in the faith. Be brave. Be strong. And let all that you do be done in love. I'm out of time, folks. Thanks for tuning in. I'll be back next week.